Hey everybody, Anish Majumdar here, career coach to the fiercely ambitious, here to do a quick and dirty breakdown of every single interview type that you could possibly face. All right, how to get an edge in them and what to focus on. It's a question I get a lot, and there's so much information out there that it can absolutely seem daunting. You know, case interviews, stress interviews, which I really want to talk about, competency interviews, behavioral. What do I do? How do I move forward? Listen, here's the analogy, okay? Once you know how to drive a car effectively, does it really make that much of a difference whether you're driving a Honda or a Mazda? Or a Bentley or a Rolls Royce? Yes, for bank account reasons maybe, but not in terms of your ability to actually drive the thing, right? Interviews can be like that if you understand what you're after, if you understand some core principles behind them, okay? So I want to guide you through all of that, and I hope it really, really helps you. So 3 things that I think anyone who's looking at getting a new job, moving ahead, and interviewing needs to be thinking about that is deeper than any form, okay? Rapport is the first one. Intentionality is the second. Purpose is the third. Okay? Purpose. What's the goal? What do you want out of this? If the interview you're facing is the first interview, you have one goal. Okay? And that is to identify what is really going on here and use what you've identified as the leverage for anything that happens in the future. In other words, your real goal, regardless of what type of interview it is to get beneath, if there's a job posting, get beneath that job posting because they're not being honest with you. They're giving you the sugar-coated version, right? Try to understand, listen with every sense. Try to understand what types of numbers are they facing. What's going to happen if they don't fix this? What happens 3 months from now, 6 months from now? What are the current state of affairs? What are the ramifications? What are the worries? Okay? And the more you can identify that, the more leverage you have later on in the process, right? So what is the purpose that you have? Intentionality. How are you behaving in this interview, right? You can't just sit there passively slide your resume over. I don't care what form it is. You're screwing up that way. So are you being intentional? Are the questions that you're asking getting you closer or further away from that goal? Right? Are you making sure that you are presenting every signal that you're putting out there is supporting the assertions that you want to make here? Right? This is the intentionality part. Rapport, it's so obvious. It's one of the things that is the easiest to chuck out the window. But if you don't have this, there is no offer. People that you want to do business with need to like you. They need to trust you, right? They need to know, like, trust. They need to feel that there's a sense of that bond and kinship with you, right? If that's not there and it's getting dry, forget about going further, right? That rapport has got to be there. And that means you're sharing of yourself, you're open, you're vulnerable to a degree that might make you uncomfortable. You're not there to pitch and present in a one-sided manner. That's not what an interview is ever about, by the way. It's always something that is created. That's why you could fail and flub up, right? 50 times over and get the job because what you guys created was the most productive thing there. It made the most sense, right? A good interview feels like what a working week would feel like, not an acting job or a presentation job, okay? So rapport, intentionality, and purpose. I want you thinking about this as we go through all of these different forms, okay? So first, let's start with behavioral interviews versus competency-based interviews, okay? Competency-based interviews is what all of us are somewhat familiar with. They've almost gotten beaten to death. They are highly unfashionable these days. Competency-based are the old ones, you know? I'm going to ask you a series of questions designed to see, can you communicate? Are you decisive? What's your biggest failure, right? What change of job was the most difficult to make? You know, how do you feel doing X refers from Y, right? That's fallen out of favor because the hiring process has not been effective for companies. And so that form is largely being replaced by more behavioral-based interviewing questions, right? Give me an example of a time when you faced a major conflict. Give me an example of a time when your team was maybe mutinying against you and you had to hold it together, right? Tell me about a time when you took an X type of problem and solved it through high-level data analytics, right? It's about being more flexible, and that means you have to be more flexible when it comes to looking at your career. Guys, don't get hung up. We live in a world where if you can explain the underlying paradigm, you can explain the why behind it, that's where the trust comes from. So if you let a team of 15 and you see a job posting saying they need to lead 30, stop disqualifying yourself. When they ask you about this, stop getting hung up on the number, arc into what that leadership principle was and talk about that and then bring it back. Does that make sense? Do you think that in this situation, that kind of an approach would work? Right? You've got to be flexible about understanding that the change that you made in rolling out a product in the internet space You can use the methodology for launching and creating that product in all types of industries, and you should be thinking in that flexible way. Everything about your career, okay, nothing about it, I don't want you to just think of it as factual. I want you to think about it as evidence for what can happen next, right? What better proof is there that you can operate globally if for the last 10 years you've been succeeding domestically? Right? If you understand the principle that will be carrying over and you stand for that as well. Think strategic, guys. When it comes to getting to know people, when it comes to getting to understand careers, okay? Stop getting hung up on the details. I see people over-explaining my process, my methodologies, the intrinsic skills when people are not ready for it. Get buy-in on the big stuff, right? Understand the big stuff. And you will always have time in the follow-up to go deeper and deeper, okay? So behavioral is all about flexibility. Think about how does the parts of your career, how does it demonstrate an ability to fulfill strategic priorities? How about tactical priorities? How about human priorities? Right? This is the way you want to be thinking about it, right? In terms of these large buckets here, how is what I have done representative? And be flexible about that, right? One of the best things you can do is get into the habit of talking about your work with people who know nothing whatsoever about your industry, because it will force you to be really simple and think about this in a very universal way. Okay, case interviews, a favorite of management consulting firms, okay? It's like it's basically the way to think about this is go out there, here's your challenge, prepare a presentation for us, come back and we'll see how well you solve that problem, right? Usually there's more than one right answer that needs to be there. There's no obvious solution, and where people get hung up is trying to find that. Remember, you don't work for any of these people right now. The goal is not for you to start solving problems pro bono. They want to see how you think. They want to see, okay, and this is the message I want you to take away, okay? The high-level roles, the high-level opportunities are given to people who own a process, not people who are pitching their skills. So when you look at that, okay, I want you to think about, if you have to go in there, spend 60 to 70% of the time illuminating the problem that they're trying to fix, connecting with the problem. Spend 20% of the time illuminating where to go with this, right? Because if you can connect with them on the problem side, already their conduciveness to the rest of your presentation, the rest of what you want to do in this interview is going to be astronomically high. But where people go wrong is they start solving it at the beginning. Oh my God, I got to sing and dance here. Let me give you this. But you don't know, and they don't know. And so it might actually be the solution, but if that groundwork has not been laid, it's not going to work. Case studies are all about connecting with the problem, not solving the problem. Stress interviews, got to talk about this. If you are faced with this, these are where people are rude to you. This is where people think that they can push you and treat you under duress. This is where they can say, hey, you know what, stick around, the person's going to be there. And as a client of mine, just kept them waiting for an hour and a half to see what would happen. I'm not going to give you any advice about that, because the advice there is simple. If you are dealing with a company that is treating you in that insulting manner, please get up, walk away, and if someone asks you what your experience was, be honest about it. That kind of trash has no place in professional life, and I'm telling you, you don't want to stick around, because if that's what they do to someone who is an employee, most companies are on their best behavior in hiring. I'm telling you, they're going to treat you 10 times worse as an employee. Run, okay? Run. So there you have it, okay? A quick and dirty breakdown here of every major one that we are talking about here. We talked about stress interviews. There's one last one I just want to cover here. Group interviews versus panel. Group interviews means, again, like stress interviews, unless you're fresh out of college, why? A group interview is you interviewing with a whole bunch of other candidates at the same time. It has one purpose only, and that is to commoditize you. Please do everything possible not to take part in that. If that means that you're building relationships at a different level, taking different actions, do it. I personally have no advice there because it's stacked so far against you. A panel interview is you interviewing with multiple people at a company. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Look for the person who is giving the maximum focus, who's heading things. Build the rapport there. Be intentional and purposeful there, and make sure you have at least one focused moment with every person in that room, okay? Keep running. Remember that you have a 50 to 50 role to play in every single interview. Be sure to connect with me, Anish Majumdar, career coach to the fiercely ambitious on LinkedIn. Happy to make an invite, deepen this thing. And guys, keep hustling, keep moving forward. And if you want to go deeper into my world, visit helloanish.com. You'll see that right on screen right now. I have more exclusive training, a deep masterclass that will show you everything that we do with our clients. Come on in, the water's warm. Talk soon.